Blood is supposed to mean safety. In my family, blood was a password, something you flashed to get past the velvet rope. The day my parents erased my foster daughter from my brother's wedding guest list, my mother didn't even lower her voice. She doesn't belong. We don't include outsiders. I didn't scream. I didn't bargain. I said it once. We're out. But on Thanksgiving, I made one quiet move in front of everyone, and the entire table went dead silent. My name is Aurora. I'm 33 and I live in Newport, Rhode Island, where people speak in polite sentences and do ugly things with clean hands. I restore antique furniture for a living. Real antiques, the kind that have survived wars, floods, and generations of people pretending they were better than the ones before them. I've always liked that work. You strip away varnish and lies until the grain shows itself. 3 years ago, I became a foster parent. I told myself it was temporary. A safe place, a warm bed. A kid could land here, and then move on. Then Luna walked into my hallway with a backpack that looked too small to hold a whole childhood. 13 years old, big eyes, tight mouth, the posture of someone trained to take up as little space as possible. That first week, she asked permission to drink water. I said, "You don't need permission to exist in this house." She stared at me like that sentence was written in a language she'd never been allowed to learn. Luna was brilliant in a quiet way. She sketched buildings in the margins of her notebooks, staircases, and hidden doors, places that looked solid and safe. In my workshop, she sat on a stool and watched me work, fingers tracing the grain of old wood, like she was trying to learn how something broken could still be worth fixing. My parents never understood her. My mother and father were Newport people. Club memberships, lineage talk, a hunger for being seen as the right kind. My brother Maverick, 30 and always reaching for the next rung, soaked up their obsession like it was oxygen. The only person who didn't perform the family myth out loud was Grandpa Arthur, 78, blunt as winter, living in the guest house behind my parents' mansion. Grandpa Arthur adored Luna. They fixed clocks together at my kitchen table, heads bent over gears like conspirators. He treated her like she mattered without announcing it, which was the purest kindness. My parents, on the other hand, tolerated Luna the way you tolerate a stain you can't scrub out before company arrives. They were polite. They asked about her school in that careful tone people use when they don't want the answer to be complicated. They called her the girl. Never my kid, never family. I told myself it was fine because they weren't cruel until my brother got engaged. Maverick proposed to Clara, a Newport Aries with a smile that could pass for warmth if you didn't look too long. Her parents were worse. Soft voices, sharp eyes, the kind of people who could ruin you with a raised eyebrow. My mother cried when the engagement was announced, not because she was happy, because she was relieved. Like Maverick had finally justified the years she'd spent worshipping status. A month later, a thick cream invitation arrived in my mailbox, gold embossed and heavy as a threat. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Luna did homework. Inside, in elegant calligraphy, was one name, Aurora, just me. Luna read my face before I could speak. She nodded once, too calm, too practiced, and slipped away to her room like she was already making herself smaller to survive. I called my mother. She answered like she'd been waiting. "Isn't it beautiful?" She purred. "Why isn't Luna invited?" I asked. Silence. Then my mother's voice softened into that sweet, lethal tone. "Honey, this wedding is sensitive. Clara's family. They're particular. They value genealogy. Deep roots. You understand? My child isn't an inconvenience you hide," I said. "She's a wonderful girl," my mother replied. "But she's not our blood. She's my family." My mother exhaled, impatient now. "Aurora, we don't include outsiders." The words hit like a slap. I pictured Luna asking permission to drink water. I pictured my mother saying outsiders as if it were etiquette. I kept my voice calm because anger was what they expected. I said it once. I told her, "We're out." Then I hung up. The days after the invitation were worse than the invitation itself. My mother didn't just call. She performed. She'd leave a voicemail that began with a sigh like she was the wounded party. "Aurora, sweetheart, you're being emotional. Think logically." Then, after a pause, Just enough to sound reasonable. She'd twist the knife. Do you want Clara's family to think we raise problems? My father was simpler. He texted like a judge handing down sentences. You're selfish. Stop punishing your brother. This is bigger than your feelings. As if Luna's dignity was a feeling. As if my boundaries were a tantrum. One afternoon, he called and I answered by mistake. My phone slick with sawdust. His voice came out already irritated like my existence was an inconvenience. Are you done? He demanded. Done with what? I asked. With this little rebellion, he snapped. You always do this. You always have to make a point. I'm making a point that a child is not disposable, I said. He scoffed. She's not your blood. I heard Luna's pencil scratching upstairs and felt my anger turn cold. Neither is Grandpa Arthur's bloodline, I said before I could stop myself. There was a beat of silence. What did you say? My father asked, suddenly wary. Nothing. I replied and ended the call with my heart hammering. Even then, the truth wanted out. Maverick tried again in person a few days later. He showed up at my workshop while I was reupholstering a chair, expensive cologne, fighting with the smell of glue. He stood in the doorway like a man hoping the right expression could buy forgiveness. Look, he said, keeping his voice low. Clara's parents asked about you. They asked if you'd be there. And what did you tell them? I asked. He swallowed. That you were busy. That you couldn't make it. I stared at him. You lied about me the same way Mom and Dad lie about Grandpa Arthur. His eyes flicked away. You're not being fair. I laughed once. Fair is inviting my kid. He leaned closer, urgency spilling out. Aurora, if you show up without Luna, it smooths everything. If you don't show up, it looks like there's trouble. And if it looks like there's trouble, they'll blame me. They'll what? I asked. Not choose you? His face tightened. He didn't answer. I stepped toward him until he had to look at me. Say her name, I said. What? Say Luna, I repeated. Say it like she's a person. His throat worked. Luna, he said, and it sounded forced, like he'd bitten into something bitter. Good. I said. Now hear me. I will not teach that child that love is conditional. Not for your wedding. Not for Mom's ego. Not for Dad's fantasy. Maverick's eyes flashed. You're acting like you're the only one who matters. No, I said softly. I'm acting like she does. That night, Luna didn't cry. She went quiet, which was worse. She cleaned the kitchen without being asked, wiping counters until they shone, the way kids do when they think usefulness is the price of staying. I caught her rinsing a mug she hadn't used. Hey, I said gently. You don't have to earn space here. She shrugged. Too casual. I'm just helping. I watched her for a long moment. Did you hear Maverick today? Her hands froze under running water. A little. What did you hear? She turned the faucet off. That I make you difficult, she whispered. My chest tightened. You don't make me difficult, I said. You make me honest. She blinked fast. Honest is dangerous. It can be, I admitted. But it's also how you stop being owned. After that, my phone became a weapon. My father's texts were blunt and furious. Stop making a scene. Your brother needs this. My mother left voicemails dripping with guilt. Don't ruin Maverick's future. Don't embarrass us. Think about our standing. Maverick called late one night, voice low like he was confessing a crime. Please, he said, just come alone. Just play along. Play along with erasing a child, I said. It's not like that, he insisted, but he couldn't say it with conviction. What did you tell Clara's parents? I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Maverick, I said quietly. If you can sell me out for a seat at their table, you can keep the table, he went sharp. You don't get it. This is my life. Don't ruin this. My father's favorite phrase. Don't ruin this. As if my existence was a mess. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, I found Luna in the hallway with her backpack on again. I'll go, she whispered, eyes fixed on the floor. I'll leave, so you can go to the wedding. You shouldn't lose your real family because of me. Something in my chest cracked open. I took the backpack from her hands. It was light, like she'd learned not to own anything she might miss. Listen to me, I said, kneeling so she had to meet my eyes. You don't leave. You don't shrink. If I lose people who need me to pretend you don't exist, then they were never my family to begin with. Her lip trembled. But they don't want me. Then they can keep their wanting, I said. Well, keep our truth. The wedding happened without us. Newport posted its glossy photos. My mother uploaded a picture captioned, "Family is everything." I stared at the words until they turned sour. A week later, Grandpa Arthur appeared in my workshop without warning. He didn't hug. He didn't reassure. He simply set a small key on my workbench. "Bank box," he said. "Downtown under my name." I looked at him. "Why?" His eyes were flat and sure. "Your parents forgot what they are," he said. "Time they remember." The next morning, while Luna was at school, I went to the bank. Marble floors, old portraits. The kind of place that made you feel watched even when you were alone. I opened Grandpa Arthur's box with the key and found a yellowed folder. Inside was an official orphanage intake record dated 1946. St. Jude's infant male found on church steps. No name, no known parentage, assigned name, Arthur. I sat in that small room and reread it until the letters stopped swimming. Grandpa Arthur, the patriarch my parents used like a coat of arms, had started as an abandoned child, a literal outsider. There were other papers, too. Notes, letters, proof of how my mother and father had polished that truth into a myth. Paid for genealogists, invented branches, smoothed gaps with money. They'd built their historic family on a man they'd once been ashamed to admit didn't come with a bloodline. And they'd erase Luna for being exactly what Grandpa Arthur had been. Thanksgiving arrived with its usual theater. My parents hosted a grand dinner in their mansion. Linen, crystal, a table arranged like a demand. They invited Clara and her parents. Of course, this wasn't a holiday. It was an audition. 2 days before, my mother texted, "Please come. Just you." "Let's be peaceful," I replied. "Okay." Luna went still when I told her. "You don't have to," she whispered, already bracing for abandonment. "I do," I said, "but not the way they think." I went alone, dressed plainly, the folder sealed inside a clear sleeve in my bag like a quiet blade. My mother opened the door with a triumphant smile that flicked to my empty hands, confirming I'd come without my child. "Good," she murmured, barely audible, like she was proud I'd learned obedience. At the table, my father played host. My brother looked brittle. Clara looked perfect. Clara's parents sat like judges. Conversations skated over the surface of everything. My mother kept touching my wrist as if to remind me I was being monitored. Then Clara's father stood with his glass. "To family," he said warmly in that practiced voice meant for rooms like this. "To deep roots, to blood and tradition. In times of change, it matters to know where you come from." My mother beamed. My father nodded, hungry for approval. I watched my mother's mouth open, ready to add our own heritage to the performance. I let her get one breath into the lie. Then I stood, not loudly, not dramatically, just upright. Every eye turned. I reached into my bag and placed the clear sleeve on the center of the table, right on the linen runner, as gently as if I were setting down a dessert. Plastic against fabric made a soft sound. The room went colder. My father's jaw tightened. "What is that?" I kept my voice level. "Grandpa Arthur asked me to bring this." I said he thought it would go nicely with a toast about pure blood. My mother went pale so fast it was almost comical. "Aurora," she hissed. I looked at her and spoke the sentence she'd tried to make me swallow. "You told me my foster daughter doesn't belong," I said. "You said we don't include outsiders." Maverick flinched. Clara's eyes sharpened. I tapped the top page through the plastic. "This is an orphanage intake record from 1946. I said St. Jude's. "It says an infant was found on church steps. No name, no parentage. The orphanage assigned him a name." I paused long enough for the room to lean in. "Arthur." Clara's mother's expression shifted. First surprise, then something like disgust aimed not at the abandoned child, but at my parents. Clara's father set his glass down slowly. "So, your family's lineage begins with a foundling," he said, voice careful. "Yes," I replied. "An outsider. The kind of child my mother called from the street." The kind of child she erased from a wedding invitation. My mother reached for the sleeve with trembling fingers. "This is private," she whispered. I slid it back to the center. "You made my child private," I said softly. "I'm just sharing the family story you're so proud of." My father stood so abruptly his chair scraped. "How dare you," he spat. I didn't raise my voice. That was the point. "Enjoy your meal," I said, calm as glass. "And enjoy the truth." Clara's parents looked at my mother and father as if they discovered mold in a wine cellar. Clara's hand tightened on Maverick's knee. Maverick's face drained, the dream collapsing in real time. I picked up my bag and walked out. No slam, no speech, just the clean click of the door closing behind me. When I got home, Luna was waiting on the couch, pretending to watch a movie. She paused at the second I stepped inside. "You did something," she said, voice shaking. "I did," I admitted, and the relief tasted like air after drowning. "Did they say my name?" she asked small. "They were too busy choking on their own," I said. "And for the record, if anyone at that table was an outsider, it wasn't you." The fallout was swift and polite, the way Newport destroys you without getting its hands dirty. My parents stopped being invited to certain events. Their name faded from committees. My mother called, cried, begged. My father texted rage. I didn't respond. A week later, Maverick knocked on my door. This time, he looked like a man who'd finally noticed the ground under his feet was fake. "They want a contract," he said, voice raw. "Clara's parents, a prenup conditions like I'm a stray." I let silence answer him first. He laughed once, bitter. "It's karma with good manners," he said. A week before the wedding, Maverick called me near midnight. "I canceled it," he whispered. "What happened?" I asked. "She told me she loved the idea of me," he said, voice breaking. "Not me." And I realized I loved the idea of being enough. I've been auditioning my whole life. I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it in the way you mean it. When someone finally wakes up to their own cage. December came. Newport glittered like a postcard, but my parents' windows were quieter. Grandpa Arthur spent more evenings at my house fixing clocks with Luna, grumbling approval when her hands grew steadier. On Christmas Eve, my small living room glowed with tree lights and cookie crumbs. Luna wore a red sweater and laughed when icing slid onto Grandpa Arthur's sleeve. He called it sabotage. She called it an accident. For once, the word family didn't taste like a lie. Then there was a hesitant knock at the door. Maverick stood on my porch in a plain sweater. No polish, no performance. He held a small wrapped box like a fragile apology. Luna appeared behind me, stiff at first, then curious. Maverick's eyes filled when he saw her. "Hi," he said, voice thin. "Hi," Luna answered, cautious. He held out the gift. "I brought you something." Luna looked at me for permission. I nodded once. She unwrapped it slowly and lifted out an old architectural compass, brass-worn, smooth at the edges. Her breath caught. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Maverick swallowed hard. "You belong," he said, and the words sounded like they hurt on the way out. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I tried to erase you. I'm sorry I let Mom and Dad make me smaller." Luna stared at him for a long moment. "Are you still scared?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes," he said. "But I'm more scared of becoming them." Grandpa Arthur cleared his throat from his chair. "If you're going to change," he called, "do it with actions, not speeches." Maverick flinched, then looked at Luna again. "Can I come in?" he asked. Quiet. Luna held the door wider, copying the way she'd seen me do it when safety mattered. "You can," she said. "If you mean it." Maverick stepped inside. The air in my house felt steady, like a repaired clock finally ticking true. Blood didn't make us a family. Choice did. And the lie my parents worshipped, status, purity, the fantasy of deep roots could collapse in one evening. But what we built in its place was real enough to hold.